wisdom,
prudentia,
justice,
justitia,
temperance,
temperantia,
courage.
fortitudo.
Applying ancient philosophy to modern life, this is the Sunday Stoic.
Welcome to the Sunday Stoic podcast. Stoicism is an ancient philosophy with some parallels with Buddhism, a philosophy / religion that has a lot more recognizability in the modern world perhaps than Stoicism, but Stoicism developed in the Western world during the period of around 300 BC to roughly, 280 or so. And some of us, including some of the listeners to this podcast, and perhaps you yourself, are intrigued by it and also find it to be intuitively correct in many ways and useful. It's a practical philosophy that we can utilize to help us frame our daily lives, to not be swept away by desires, to not be swept away by things outside of our power, but to remind ourselves to focus on our character, on being good citizens, good family members, and to go to bed a slightly better person than the one who we met in the mirror in the morning. I've talked about this on previous episodes, but one of the core themes you find, especially in Marcus Aurelius, but it comes up in the other Stoics as well, is change, to remind ourselves that nothing stays the same. Sometimes, depending on the level of scale, we can forget this. You go back home after being away for years and the stores are closed or they've moved. That place you remember swinging on the swing as a young child is now a parking lot. And that can kind of be disappointing. The family farm is now owned by a new family. These are things that may unsettle you, may not feel good if you forget that all things change. Countries rise and fall. Mountains rise and fall. Galaxies will rise and fall, right? These are constants in our universe. Just think of the fact that the Grand Canyon here in the United States used to probably be a flat prairie or something, right? And now it's a large eroded canyon thanks to time, water, and that inevitable change. The Discourses of Epictetus, Book 3, Chapter 24, that we ought not to be moved by a desire for those things which are not in our power. Do you tell me that a name which is significant of any natural thing is of bad omen? Say that even for the ears of corn to be reaped is of bad omen, for it signifies the destruction of the ears, but not of the world. Say that the falling of leaves also is of bad omen, and for the dried fig to take the place of the green fig, and for raisins to be made from grapes. For all of these things are changes from a former state into other states, not a destruction, but a certain fixed economy and administration. Such as going away from home, and such a small change. Such as death, a greater change, not from the state which is now to that which is not, but to that which is not now. Shall I then no longer exist? You will not exist, but you will be something else, of which the world now has need. For you also came into existence not when you chose, but when the world had need of you. Moral Letters to Lucilius by Seneca, number 91, on lessons to be drawn from the burning of lions. Do you not see how, in Acacia, the foundations of the most famous cities have already crumbled to nothing, so that no trace is left to show that they ever existed? Not only does that which has been made with hands totter to the ground, not only that which has been set up by man's art and his efforts overthrown by the passing days, nay, the peaks of mountains dissolve, whole tracts have been settled, and places which once stood far from the side of the sea are now covered by the waves. The Thoughts of Marcus Aurelius, Book 11, number 35. Grapes, unripe, ripened, then raisins, constant transitions.
Grapes and figs are used by Epictetus as well as Marcus Aurelius here to remind us that change is not necessarily an evil, it's just a natural phenomenon. So as I said earlier, we can observe changes that happen in our lifetime. We can infer changes that have happened over the eons, and we must remember that even the end of our life is nothing more really than a change. And they liken it here to the ripening of corn, right? That there's, what's the harm in corn if it doesn't ripen? And from a human perspective, what good was the corn if it never ripened? What's the harm to a grape that it's now a raisin? What's the harm to a human being that they once lived and now they're gone? Epictetus, says quite poignantly, yeah, you'll be gone. You'll be gone when you're dead. You'll be different, but you'll be something else, something that the world now needs. And we can think of that from a spiritual perspective or from a scientific perspective. You'll be recycled into the next batch of living things, right? And Seneca puts things also into that geologic perspective, saying, not only do towns crumble, we know of cities whose foundations are now gone, but also mountaintops eventually are lowered to ground level and the ocean levels rise. There are resort towns, Baiae, I think is how you say it, that Seneca wrote about in his letters to Lucilius, and chunks of it are now completely underwater. You have to have scuba gear to explore them. Things change. And if we can accept that, once again, accepting things beyond our power, reminding ourselves that things change, that's just another level of letting go of things outside of our power to control and accepting that things will change. So what are some things in our lives that we sure would like to see stay the same? I know I can name many. I wish my child might stay a child a while longer. I wish that my grandma would be around forever. She's 97. I wish that the family farm would always be ours and not be lost to some other family in the future. And these are all things that, even if in my lifetime some of them don't change, they will eventually change given time. And that's something we just have to accept. Dishes will be broken, right? Mountains will fall. Powers will change and governments will change. The constellations in the sky will change if you have enough time to watch. So think about that and make peace with it. And I'll see you next week. Carpe diem.
Thank you for listening to The Sunday Stoic. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, rate, and review The Sunday Stoic on iTunes. Become a member of the Sunday Stoic team, earn rewards, and be an integral part of the show by becoming a patron at www.patreon.com/SundayStoic. Contact the show by emailing sundaystoic@gmail.com or by leaving a voicemail at 501-503-3132. To find out more, visit www.sundaystoicpodcast.com. And as Steve always says, Carpe Diem.